Once again, it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 57 of the Tristain on Sports Show Toss. Yes, it is your main man, T-Squared, Tristain Thomas. Thank you all so very much for joining us. This week, we got to talk about major moves made by the Bucks. We got to talk about a win that felt like a loss by the Green Bay Packers, and then the toss sweep. It's time to stop ducking and dodging. I'll explain more, but you guys know how we get things started. We got to get it started with some major state of the state news. The Milwaukee Bucks. Yes, they're in the offseason. Yes, they're not playing. Yes, they had a heartbreaking end to their season. And yes, we knew that moves had to be made in order for them to contend, in order for them to keep their generational talent, their two-time MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Well, John Horst, Bucks GM, made those moves last night with two huge league-shaking moves. Yes, league-shaking, because people are taking notice of the Milwaukee Bucks. And they know that they're going after the chip. What moves did they make? First move was the move that I had been privy to, information that I was getting, which was the most logical move and what everybody else felt like was the most logical move. And I felt that this move was the move that would happen. People I spoke with said this was the move that would eventually happen, and it did. The Bucks received Jrue Holiday from the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, and 3 first-round picks. This was the move that had to be made. I cannot stress this enough. And we'll get more into it in a second. The other move, because Horst wasn't done. You thought, okay, we made the one big earth-shattering trade, the big league-shaking trade, and that's enough. I could drop the mic, off-season done. No. He wasn't done. He then authors a sign-and trade for Bogdan Bogdanović of the Sacramento Kings. The Kings will receive Dante DiVincenzo, Ersan Ilyasova, DJ Wilson. You get the guy that you wanted to go and get at the trade deadline anyway in a sign and trade. So now you have him for long term. You have the guy at the point guard spot who can also play the 2-guard spot because he can shoot. And Jrue Holiday. You now have probably the best starting 5 in all of basketball. With Giannis, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, Bogdan Bogdanović, and Jrue Holiday. You have a front-loaded squad. You have a starting 5 that teams are going to have one hell of a time trying to get over on. Now, yes, you pretty much gutted your bench. And you're going to have to sign a bunch of guys to kind of fill out your roster. And there's going to be guys available. Guys like Jeff Teague, guys like Paul Millsap, Marco Bellinelli. Those are just names off the top of my head. You probably priced yourself out of the market for a guy like Danilo Gallinari. But if you could fill your roster out with guys who could step in and get the job done, and maybe one of the guys currently still on the roster can step up and get the job done. A guy like Sterling Brown, hopefully he steps up. What do you do with Frank Mason? Do you continue to have him on a 2-way contract? The G League MVP. The Herd should have won a championship, but their season was cut short due to COVID. I think you have some guys that are currently still on the roster. What do you do with Thanasis? Giannis' brother. Does he get a little bit more time? I mean, you have some guys in-house that could play a bigger role, but do they want to take it? Do they want to seize that opportunity? Can they be consistent? regardless, you're going to have to sign somebody because you're going to need more than the amount of players that you do have. And they also got another guy from the Kings, and his name is escaping me right now, and I apologize for that. But you're going to have to fill out your roster, and that will come. John Horst is not done. Just when you thought you didn't have any picks in Wednesday night's draft, they went and purchased picks. They now have a second-round pick. So Horst is not done. Horst is still working his magic and doing his thing with the salary cap and trade capital and everything else. This is why he's an NBA GM. This is what he does. Now, if you want to get into the meat and potatoes of all the moves, I've long been a proponent for moving Eric Bledsoe. That was the most logical person to move. And it's not because I don't like Eric Bledsoe. Let's make that abundantly clear. Regular season Eric Bledsoe is a good Eric Bledsoe. He gives you what he's given every single team throughout his entire career. Just this past season, 14 points, 5 assists. All defense second team. The year prior, first team, all defense. But this season, this postseason, just like last postseason, just like the postseason before that, his performance shrank. He shrank in the big moments. And that's not something that I'm plucking out of thin air. There is tangible proof of this. Now, when this first happened, in his first postseason with the Milwaukee Bucks, when he got outplayed by Terry Rozier, a.k.a. Scary Terry. And boy, how far and how fast did he fall? My goodness. Not so Scary Terry these days. I think the guy still has some game, don't get me wrong, but the consistency is lacking. But I digress. After that postseason, hopped on to Home Court Sports. You guys know the legendary Home Court Sports. Myself and Professor P and Lamont, we all discussed this. Lamont, Professor P, they were ready to just cut Eric Bledsoe. They were just fed up with him, did not want that. Like, they saw that performance in the playoffs. It was like, nope, we got to get rid of him. I said, hey, it's one postseason. If this is a persistent problem, because I had full confidence that the Bucks were on the right track and they will be constantly making the postseason. So if this happens next postseason, then you're like, okay, what's going on here? This is 2 postseasons in a row. Not only did the Bucks give it a chance to hit 2 postseasons, it happened in 3. At that point, when it hit the 3rd postseason in a row, that his performance shrank. At some point, you have to look at that as it being what it is. He is not the playoff performer they need. He is not going to provide you with the performance you need in that big moment for this team. That's not to say that he can't go to a different team, they get into the playoffs, and he has big moments within that system. It's not saying that. But the roster as currently constructed, the coach, who he is, the system that they run, he was not the right fit in that moment for that time of the year. And that's money time. That's the time that that's the time you earn your worth. You got guys with multiple all-star appearances that just flame out in the playoffs. Just can't figure it out. Just can't bring themselves up to the level of competition that it takes to play in the playoffs. It is a different animal. You are facing the best of the best every single night in a 7-game series. I'm not saying this to disparage Eric Bledsoe. I'm not saying this to poo-poo on Eric Bledsoe. Because again, regular season Eric Bledsoe helps you win a lot of games. But postseason Eric Bledsoe contributed to a lot of losses. He just wasn't the right fit come playoff time. And that is the time of the year that matters the most to the Milwaukee Bucks. We are now talking about the Milwaukee Bucks being in championship air. Their championship window is wide open. I think it's been blown wide open. Now, with these moves, they have pushed all their chips in to the middle of the table. You got rid of the one guy that made the most sense to get rid of. And not so much get rid of, but to move. Because you just saw that it just simply was not working in the playoffs. That is the money time. That is the time of the year that everybody's watching the Bucks to see what they are going to do. Can they get over the hump? That is the time of the year that matters now for the Milwaukee Bucks. Playoff time. And Eric Bledsoe just could not rise to that occasion. That's the bottom line. He could not rise to that occasion. It just did not work with him at the point guard spot in the playoffs. It just did not work. Teams did not respect him because they knew he could not shoot. He can get to the cup. They knew he could not shoot. They knew that he was going to take some inexplicably bad shots. Which we saw plenty of in that Miami series. My God. It was time to move on from Eric Bledsoe and get someone in there that you believe could perform in the playoffs. That may be a better fit and a better player in this system with Giannis, with Chris, with the other guys on the squad. That man is Drew Holiday. Now, time will tell. They get to the postseason, time will tell how he performs. Hopefully it's better than Bledsoe. Hopefully teams have to respect his shot. And he is a much better three-point shooter than is Eric Bledsoe. A better distributor of the basketball than is Eric Bledsoe. And you do not lose any defensive excellence in that spot. Many regard Drew Holiday as being the best on-ball defender in the National Basketball Association. Another guy who's made All-NBA. A guy who's been an all-star. Granted, back in 2013, but an all-star nonetheless. You have significantly upgraded that spot with Drew Holiday. Significantly. Because with him and his addition to this roster, the Milwaukee Bucks now have 3 of the top 10 players. Okay, I want to make this very, very clear. They now have 3 of the top 10 players in real plus minus from last season. Giannis being number 1 at plus 10.8. Chris Middleton being number 8 at 4.4. And Drew Holiday clocking in at number 10 with a plus 4.0 real plus minus last season. That is a significant upgrade. That is a significant upgrade. And it's something that had to happen. You had to make a move. Now with Bogdanović, again, this is a guy that the Bucks had their eye on at the trading deadline. And they didn't quite pull that trigger at that point in time because they felt like maybe that's at that point, like, okay, maybe it's a little bit too much. I mean, you know, the bubble hadn't happened yet. The shutdown with COVID hadn't happened yet. They were kind of thinking, okay, draft capital, we need to keep this. And it was a whole different plan John Horst and his team had for the course of this team at that point in time. Nobody saw COVID happening. Nobody saw the bubble happening. But then the shutdown did happen because of COVID. Then the bubble did happen. And your early exit and your struggles within the bubble happened. Now there's doubt put into your mind on whether or not Giannis is going to resign. The truth be told, it seemed like there's a little bit of doubt in Giannis's mind whether or not he was going to sign. And let's be very clear, he still has not to this point. But that's the point I'm trying to make. after that early exit, second round to the Miami Heat, after the struggles in the bubble, the struggles before the bubble, you're now thrust into a different situation to where you have to make moves. John Horst felt very comfortable with giving up all the draft capital he did for Drew Bledsoe, with giving up all the players, Drew Holiday. He felt very comfortable with giving up all the players he did to get Bogdanovich on a sign and trade. The question becomes, is this enough? Is this enough to convince Giannis to sign that Supermax, that 5-year, north of $230 million Supermax? To which I respond, as an NBA GM, John Horst does not make those moves without being more than confident Giannis resigns on a Supermax deal. Let me slow it down for all the people out there who don't watch a damn lick of Bucks basketball. Don't really know a damn thing about basketball. They're just trying to talk to gain attention. John Horst does not make this move or these moves without being more than confident that Giannis resigns with the Bucks. This is a lot to give up. You gutted your depth. You gave a king's ransom in picks, which, when you really think about it, if you're still going to be consistent and you're winning 60-plus games and you're still number one seed in the Eastern Conference and you're going to make deep playoff runs, hopefully this time you win an NBA Finals, your picks are going to be low anyway. And we all know that level of talent starts to drop after you get past the lottery. Then it's just really a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get. You have to be confident that you can keep your generational talent before you go and give up as much as John Horst did. Before you go and push all of your chips into the middle of the table as John Horst has. This is a statement to Giannis, which this, we know it's been reported. This is something that he's been wanting. He wanted the franchise to show that they are in it to win championships, that they'll do what it takes to win championships, make the necessary moves and acquisitions to be competitive to win championships. That is what Giannis views himself as a championship level player, as a player that can help bring the city of Milwaukee a championship. You don't do what John Horst has done with the blessing of ownership if you even have a slight inclination that Giannis is going to walk next season. At some point, and this is just my prediction, this was a statement to Giannis that they're going to win now and in the future. So at some point, Giannis is going to sign that Supermax deal. He will be in Milwaukee for the foreseeable future. I have confidence in that. These moves, everything that was given up, all the talent that was acquired, shows me that John Horst knows something we don't. Shows me, and I think it shows Giannis, that they're in it to win it not only this season, but in seasons moving forward. They're going to make the moves that are necessary to keep this team competitive for championships. And isn't that what you want? How long can you own the future? At some point, you got to cash in. You got to put it all in. You got to push all the chips to the table. You got to put all the cash in. You can't pinch pennies when you're trying to buy gold. Can't do it. It doesn't work that way. At some point, you have to take a calculated risk. This is what this was. This is what Jon Horst showed to Giannis, the NBA, and Bucks fans around the world. That you have to take a calculated risk to go and win a championship. This is exactly what this was. A calculated risk to win a championship and to keep a once-in-a-generation talent. Possibly a once-in-a-lifetime talent when it's all said and done. In Giannis. Huge move. Championship window wide open. I mean, I think we got to hit Jon Horst with one of these. I mean, just masterful work done by Jon Horst. And I know. There's still work to be done. There's a roster to still be filled out. I have no doubts he'll do that. Not even worried about it. But he's assembled the best starting five in the entire association. That is not even a stretch to say. That is a fact. So you got to be happy with the work he's done. Eventually, Giannis will resign. Bravo, Jon Horst. Bravo, Bucks ownership for giving the blessing to do all this. It's been an amazing day. It's been an amazing 24 hours for the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll see how the rest of this roster shapes out, and we'll also keep an eye on the rest of the association as we move forward in this much abbreviated off season. But man, bravo, Jon Horst, Milwaukee Bucks. They're pushing all the chips in. They're going after a title, and they're also going after keeping Giannis for the foreseeable future. Let's continue here on Toss State of the State, and let's get to the Green Bay Packers. Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. Did they win their ball game on Sunday? They did. They did win their ball game on Sunday. They beat the Jaguars. My official quick toss pick had them beating the Jaguars 35-21 because I felt that James Robinson, Jaguars running back, would find some running room, score a couple of times. But eventually I felt that the Packers would assert their dominance and win the game going away. But instead, it ended up being a 24-20 struggle to beat a 1-7, now 1-8, Jacksonville Jaguars team. And for that, I got to hit the Packers with this. I wrote on the Toss blog on tossnationmedia.com that although the Packers did win this game, it felt like a damn loss. Now it's the NFL. They're 7-2. They're in first place in the NFC North, as well as the entire conference. If the playoffs were to begin today, the Packers would have a bye week because you only get one bye week per conference this this postseason. You'll take a win however you can get it. But at some point, you got to learn from what you've been doing. Now, I mentioned that I thought that James Robinson would find running room and score a couple of times, and he nearly did, but both of them were called back due to holding. He had 2 touchdown runs, and both of them were called back due to holding. But he did find room, 23 carries for 109 yards. They still don't have an answer for that. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith all had a sack apiece. But really, for that first half, they were not sending any pressure against a rookie quarterback. I mean, are you kidding me? They still haven't found an answer for that lack of pressure. Yes, they got 3 sacks, but why are you not sending the house at this dude? He's a rookie. You make life hell for him. You make everything difficult for him. You don't sit back and take it easy. You make it difficult. Welcome to the NFL. We're going to beat your head in every single play. You're going to be on the turf every single time you decide to drop back. But instead, you let them stay upright. You let them stay pretty clean for a majority of the day before you started to get some type of pressure that got home. You allowed him to throw a touchdown pass. Yes, Adrian Amos did have an interception off of him. But you didn't do yourself any favors. Oh, and then let's talk about special teams. Now, the lazy take would be to say that J.K. Scott outkicked his coverage. When you go back and look at it, you see that the coverage wasn't very good. You have 5 guys guarding one lane, which left the whole outside sidelines wide open for the return for a touchdown. It's the little things. It's the little things. You can spout off all the offensive game that you want. Yes, Rodgers had 325 yards passing. Yes, he had 2 touchdown passes. He also had an interception. Threw it right at the defender. Yes, MVS had 4 catches for 149 yards, which included a 78-yard touchdown reception. Yes, it was a huge play. But he also had some drops. Devontae was able to be pretty well bottled up, even though he had close to double-digit catches. You can't continue to make the same mistakes and say, oh, well, we're discussing it and we have to find a way to be better. These are the same things that plagued you last season. Now, the only thing this season, and I've said it again on the Toss blog in my midseason thoughts on the Green Bay Packers, the only thing to have improved this season is the offense. This offense was averaging about 23 points per game last season. They came into Sunday's game closer to 30 points per game this season. That's the only thing that's really improved. Your pass rush has regressed. The passing defense has seen a lot of injuries. You had Kevin King out and Jair Alexander out this past Sunday against the Jaguars. Your passing defense was pretty decent, but look at what you were facing. Gardner Minshew was not playing the game. Your other starting wide receiver, Shenault Jr., was out. They bottled up Chark pretty well. But because of their injuries, the passing defense has regressed just a tad bit. But when healthy, they've been they've been the best part of the unit. This run defense, I'm not even going to spend time on because we know it's terrible. It's what cost you championships. I said it time and time again, and I'll say it again. It's cost you championships. At what point do you actually learn from your faults? At what point do you actually learn from all of your mistakes? At what point do you actually make proper adjustments? At what point do you actually teach guys better technique? At what point do guys get it and understand that they need to be in certain positions? Now I understand in the game, you're going to take missteps. Look, I was an athlete myself. Basketball was my sport. At times when you're playing no defense and you're in practice and you've done your film study and and you practice against each other, and one team was your opponents, and the other team you were you. And you're studying this defense, and you're learning the intricacies of it, and how to counteract it, and you overplay it in practice, and it works. But then it becomes a situation in game time where you overplay it and you shouldn't have, and now all of a sudden you got a backdoor cut wide open that you just given up. I get it. Sometimes you make missteps. But how many times do you make missteps before we start calling it mistakes, and then when we just call it plain incompetence? The same problems that persisted on defense last season persist on this defense this season, and is a gigantic problem. This is what's going to hold them back. Now, you were facing lesser competition in the Jaguars. And again, that is no disrespect to them. But I believe Bill Parcells said, you are what your record says you are. Just like when the Packers were 13-3 last season. Hey, they were a 13-3 football team. They made it to the NFC Championship game. Yes, they got blown out because of their inability to stop the run. But they were still a 13-3 football team. They found a way to win games. This past Sunday against the Jaguars, they found a way to win that game. It is what you want. A win is a win. You get them however you can. And I will never complain about that. But at some point, you have to look at it and really think. If you're struggling against a 1-7 ball club on a 7-game losing streak in your crib, what are you going to do against the better competition? You got a tough test coming up Sunday afternoon in Indianapolis with the AFC South leading Colts, 6-3. A future Hall of Fame quarterback in Phillip Rivers. A good running game led by former Badger Jonathan Taylor. You got Nyheim Hines out in the backfield that could come out there and catch the football, but it could also run it a bit. You got guys out there that can catch the ball like Michael Pittman Jr. And you have one of the better defenses in all of the National Football League ready to stop every single thing you plan on doing. They are the team that is an absolute recipe for disaster for you. They can run it, they can pass it, and they can play defense. If you struggled against a 1-7 Jaguars team, what's going to happen against a 6-3 Colts team, division leading team? It's going to be real interesting to see if they made any type of progress on being able to stop the run, on being able to just really be sound defensively, if they shored up those blunders on special teams. But the Packers can't continue playing like this. Yeah, they're winning regular season games, but when the rubber meets the road in the postseason, you're facing the best of the best. Well, except for the NFC least. That's a whole different deal, but I digress. You're facing the best of the best. You're not facing 1-7 teams on 7-game losing streaks, even though you struggled against them. You're facing the best of the best, which means you need to lift your game. Figure it out, get it fixed, and go win a damn championship. It's just mind-boggling to me how those same problems that persisted last season continue to persist this season for the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to leave them alone and roll over into the toss sweep. Toss Sweep, brought to you by the good folks at Toss Nation Media. Toss Nation Media, truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. I was kind of in a feisty mood on that one, man. The Packers got me riled up. It doesn't really counteract well with the excitement I have about the moves that the Bucks made. They're going all in. I can't believe it. But we're on to the Toss Sweep, and speaking of being riled up, I don't know if y'all know this about me. I think I've shared it in past episodes, which you can go and listen to anytime, anywhere. You know, Toss is available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Toss is also available on tossnationmedia.com. The upper right-hand corner is a little music note there. You can press that, and I got multiple episodes there. I am a major fight fan. I do love MMA, but my love is boxing. I grew up watching boxing. I couldn't wait for boxing to come on regular TV because, you know, I was a poor kid. You know, my family, my siblings, my mom did well to get us everything we needed, but we didn't always, you know, have everything. So we were waiting for boxing to come on regular TV, you know, those Saturday afternoons. And we could watch it. And then when, you know, we got a little bit older, mom was in a little bit better of a financial situation. We actually could afford cable at times. And we used to get the fights, you know, the week after, you know, on HBO. And be able, and it was must-watch television. I remember all my siblings, like we would do our Saturday thing. You know, some of us had to go to work, and we would make sure that we were at home by the time the fights came on. And we would all watch, you know, my mom and my brother, my sisters, my cousins, my nieces and nephews. We were all there, packed in the living room around that TV, watching the fights, every single one of them. Wonderful memories. I still love boxing to this day. This past Saturday, Terrence Bud Crawford going up against Kell Brook. Welterweight championship, WBO. Crawford knocks out Kell Brook. The man figures it out every single time. Now, give credit to Kell Brook. He came in with a game plan. Was really hurting Bud with that jab. Bud was fighting orthodox. Then he switched it up to southpaw. And when he switched it up to southpaw, that reach advantage came into play. He was able to open up Brook with that jab, came in with those hooks, those uppercuts, finished him off. It was beautiful. He always figures it out. It may take him a few rounds to see what works, what doesn't, to see what you're trying to do, but he always figures it out. If you go back and you look at my tweets, anytime I live tweet a Terrence Bud Crawford fight, because I am always watching Bud Crawford when he's on. Pound for pound king. After Lomo lost to Teofimo Lopez, big ups to him. He called his shot back in 2018, and he did it. When Lomo lost, he lost that number one spot, pound for pound king. Enter Bud Crawford, pound for pound king. And he showed it again this past Saturday with his knockout. So now the question becomes, and has always been there for years now, do we now get, and I know he has another fight first, but do we now get the Spence Crawford fight? This fight should have happened years ago. This fight should have already happened. And it hasn't. I don't use this term when I speak boxing because there's a lot of different things that go into it. Sometimes guys are negotiating and negotiations fall out because it's about money. Okay, I get it. Those guys are putting their lives on the line every time they step into that ring. You want to get as much as you possibly can when you can get it. But Spence is ducking Crawford. This fight should have happened years ago. My hope is that this fight happens when both of them are still in their prime. This fight is very much in demand. They are going to make probably the biggest payday they will probably ever make facing each other. Why not challenge yourself? Why not do it? I am so sick and tired of fighters ducking other fighters. You're in this to make money. You have an opponent who the world is clamoring for you to face, and that opponent is willing to face you. But you don't want any part of it because you think you'll lose. And that's going to hurt your marketability. No, it won't. You lost to a great fighter. You lost to the pound for pound king in the world. And you made a lot of money doing it. A hell of a lot of money. Which I think would be the outcome if they ever did fight. And I think Crawford would run right through him. And I think that's why Spence is worried. He's ducking Crawford. It is time to stop ducking each other. It is time for fighters to stop ducking fights. If you think you're going to get your ass beat, take your ass whooping and go cash your check. I mean, well, at least show up and put in some work, put in some effort. But if you get whooped, then you get whooped. Nobody's going to look down on you because you got beat. You got beat by one of the best in the world. I just don't want them to end up like Pacquiao and Mayweather, where Mayweather was ducking Pacquiao for years. And yes, I'm using the word ducking again because that's exactly what he did. For years, Mayweather ducked Pacquiao because he knew how dangerous of an opponent Pacquiao was. But yet they waited and he waited and he waited and he waited. And then all of a sudden, nope, now I'll accept the fight when both of the fighters are out of their prime. The demand for the fight was pretty much gone. The fight itself ended up being a light sparring session. Was not enjoyable, but both of them cashed out. Absolutely cashed out. I don't want this to be that kind of situation. Just fight. The world wants it. You want that payday? It's waiting right there for you. Just go and fight. Stop ducking and dodging each other. Okay, and let's be clear. Terrence Crawford's not ducking and dodging Errol Spence. Errol Spence is ducking and dodging Terrence Crawford. So I'm going to put it out there. Make this fight happen. Please. I want it. The world wants it. We got to have the best of the best going at it. It's time to stop ducking and dodging. It's time to go and get the boxing. Give the people what they want. And hopefully, I've given all of you what you wanted. Fresh heat straight from the kitchen. Time for me to get on up out of here, y'all. This was episode 57 of the Tristain on Sports Show Toss. You know where to find me on social media. At the20double. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double on both Instagram and Twitter. Toss Nation Media is on Facebook. Yes, the Tristain on Sports Show does have a Facebook page. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. TossNationMedia.com. Your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate. It's what you deserve. But as I said before, it's time for me to go on up out of here. This is T-Squared Tristan Thomas, reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week, so long from Toss.